Hello, welcome to Record Time. Record Time is a weekly Akashic experience where we'll be exploring simple and mysterious themes through the lens of the Akashic Records. Welcome, thank you for being here. If you're new and are unsure what the Akashic Records are, I invite you to check out my website, minaruchi.com, and there I have some videos explaining what the Akashic Records are and what a reading is and how it can support you and all kinds of good stuff. So that's a great place to jump in if you're curious. But for right now, I invite you, if it's safe and accessible, if it would feel good, you can close your eyes and just take a moment to arrive wherever you are right now. Maybe offer yourself a little gesture of comfort to help yourself settle into where you are. That could be taking a deep breath, relaxing your shoulders. If there's a part of your body that feels tense or tight, you can invite it to soften and relax. You can return to your natural rhythm of breathing. Just let yourself land. So today, the records, the keepers of the Akashic Records are sharing effortful pleasure is still pleasure. Effortful pleasure is still pleasure. So perhaps we'll just break this down one word at a time. So effortful, it's not a word you likely hear often. I think much more often we hear the word effortless. So maybe effortless pleasure sounds really lovely and wonderful. And maybe when you think of pleasure, you perhaps are naturally thinking of it as something that you're experiencing that feels good, that doesn't really require a lot of effort. It seems like effortlessness and pleasure sort of naturally go together. And yet, the Akashic Records are saying effortful pleasure is still pleasure. So, what does that even mean? Effortful pleasure is still pleasure. Pleasure, or something that feels good, that you had to put in a little bit of effort or intention to make it happen, still counts as feeling good. And what they really mean by that is they're just reminding us that effortless pleasure isn't the only way to feel good. And sometimes when things are busy or we have a lot going on, or we're just in the habit of working or just in the habit of going constantly and not really experiencing pleasure as part of our day-to-day, which is very normal, right? Not a lot of people have pleasure built in throughout the day where they're feeling good and doing things throughout the day to feel good. I think the vast majority of people that I encounter are in this first group where it's they're not really thinking about feeling good. It's not necessarily a priority. It would be lovely if it happened, but it's not something that they're orienting around or kind of building their day around or weaving into their day. And so in that context where pleasure is just a luxury and not something that feels like a necessity or a natural, healthy part of just being well and feeling good throughout the day, if pleasure isn't something that you're thinking about, it's easy to dismiss it completely as something that needs to be effortless, or it just doesn't happen at all. It's like it's either it'll just happen for me or it won't happen. But I'm not doing anything to create pleasure for myself. And that's what they're talking about, the records, when they say effortful pleasure. And really, another way to say that is intentional. So putting in a little bit of effort, intention, to create an experience for yourself that feels good, or to add a little bit of goodness into an experience you're already having. So this is an interesting thing to think about and to contemplate. Where do you sit on this kind of spectrum? Right now, we're kind of looking at two different extremes, right? Effortless pleasure, it's so easy to feel good, and effortful pleasure, I guess that's sort of in the middle, right? I'm making an effort to feel good, or no pleasure at all. I'm just in the habit of going. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm not doing anything about it. And the thing about that, if you're not just having pleasure effortlessly poured over you, and you're also not making an effort to create pleasure for yourself, what will likely happen is you will not have a lot of goodness throughout your day. You won't feel super good throughout the day, maybe. So, and then in that, and it can just, it's such an innocent kind of thing. It's just, we get busy, we don't think about it. Maybe we've never been taught to think about this. That I think is very common. And so what happens is you just keep going, and it just becomes a habit. You become acclimated to not having a lot of pleasure or goodness in your day, in your day-to-day life. And that can leave us feeling tired, unmotivated, lethargic, upset, easily agitated, all kinds of things. And just stressed. Pleasure is like a natural kind of balancer to stress. When you can almost like soften stress by pouring something that feels good over it, right? So if you feel very stressed, orienting to something that would help you feel good, this is kind of common sense. It would help you feel less stressed. So again, this is, so that's something to think about. Where do you sit on this spectrum of how you engage with pleasure? Or does it feel effortless, you don't have to think about it and it's happening all the time? Or is it something that you need to think about and make an effort to make happen? Or is it something you don't think about and doesn't happen? It's non-existent. So let me see what else is around this. There's a little bit more here. So they're also saying, if you think of effort as something that can go along this like spectrum of effort and pleasure, what it looks like, how it goes together. If you find yourself in this space where you don't really experience a lot of pleasure and you don't make it an intention or a priority, but you aspire to effortless pleasure, just feeling good all the time, or being able to easily access and like feel into pleasure, they're saying that like a natural opening point to start to move towards effortless pleasure is by way of effortful pleasure. And so what does that even mean? What do I mean when I say effortful pleasure? Oftentimes, pleasure is, because we are not used to it, because we don't prioritize it, we dismiss it and we go without it. It's seen as a luxury and not a need. And with this like perspective and almost like opening up to possibility for effortful pleasure, that could look like I'm already laying down or I'm already sitting down, but it would feel good to have a little drink next to me. And maybe something more than just water. Maybe I want like a sparkling water, and that's something that I have. Okay, it doesn't have to be going out and buying stuff. It's working with what's already there. And it's like keeping it very accessible. This isn't about like Yeah, buying stuff. So it's taking the effort instead of saying, it's fine, I don't need it. I'll just drink my regular water that's right here, even though I would like a sparkling water. This is just a silly example. It's it's like, oh, I'm fine. I have this. This is good enough. It's taking the effort to get up, walk over to wherever the sparkling water is, get it, and then come sit back down. And a lot of that is really what it is. It's when I say effortful, I don't mean like exhaustive, because that doesn't really feel good. It's this tiny, tiny decision to just make the little bit of effort to do something nice for yourself, to make your context, to make your current present experience a little bit nicer. That's really all it is. And so it could be, and a lot of this for me, the way I notice it is, oh, that thing that I'm thinking that would feel good is in another room. Or like, oh, it's a little warm in here. It would feel better if it's cool, but I'm too lazy to get up and turn on the fan or adjust the thermostat or whatever that might be, or open a window. So, and like I could go on. It's like, oh, it would feel good to like, I don't know, have that blanket that's extra soft that I keep like way up. I like never get it down. It's always at the top of the cabinet. And so I never use it because it's out of reach, but it would feel good, but I'm not going to put in the effort to just grab it. So a lot of it, and this is something to notice, there's probably so many other ways to do it, but this is the way it manifests for me, is this like sense of like, I don't need it. It's fine. It's good enough. I'm fine. And this like feeling that's not really laziness, but it's easy to label it as lazy. Like, I don't want to get up. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the effort to go get up and turn on the fan. It's not worth the effort to just go grab that sparkling water. It's not worth the effort to go get the blanket, whatever it might be. So, or it's like, oh, if I get this whole thing out, whatever it might be, then I have to put it away. And I'm too lazy to clean this thing up, whatever it might be. So it's that. It's like being willing to make the effort of going to get the things that you already have, that you want, that you often dismiss as, I'm fine without it. I don't need it. Oh, I could turn on the candle, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to get up. I don't know where the matches are. I'm going to have to go look around and find the matches because I never light this candle, so the matches aren't next to it. So it's like that kind of thing. And when you notice this, as you practice doing it, it's like, oh, if you light the candle, that fancy candle that you bought that you never use, and the matches are nowhere to be seen, taking the effort to go find them, to light it the first time, then you can put that thing next to it so it becomes more effortless next time. So it's a practice, just like anything and everything that I talk about, really, it's a practice. Learning a new skill, creating a new experience for yourself through practice. And really, it's training yourself out of this thinking of, it's like, I'm fine. If you hear yourself thinking or saying out loud, I'm fine. If someone offers you something like, would you like this? Do you want me to do this thing for you? And you're saying, no, I'm fine, even though you would like it. It's one thing if you are fine and you don't want it. That's okay. You don't have to accept random things or go do random things that you don't want. This is about orienting to things that would feel good. So if someone offers you something, you're like, oh no, I'm fine, even though it would be nice. If you go to a friend's house and they offer you a cup of coffee, but you're like, oh, I don't want them to go through the trouble of doing that. What would it be like if you accepted it? And if we weren't afraid of putting in effort around pleasure, where we put in so much effort around all the other things that we do in our lives. With work, it's no problem. With our family or relationships, it's no problem to put in a ton of effort. Notice how hard you work in different areas of your life and how lazy, and it's not really laziness, it's just the habit of not doing it. You're in the habit of not orienting towards pleasure. Notice how little effort you put into feeling good. What would it be like if you gave like 0.5% of effort that you give in your job to just helping yourself feel good throughout the day? So getting up to go get that thing, get the sparkling water, light the candle, turn on, adjust the thermostat, whatever, get the blanket, whatever it might be. So that is something to think about. And I'm gonna leave you with that for today. And I would love to know, if you contemplate this, where you sit on that spectrum. Do you engage in no pleasure? Do you consciously put in effort to create pleasure? Or are you basking in effortless pleasure all the time? Let me know where you're at. And if you do engage with pleasure and you're in that like zone of effortless pleasure, tell us your tips and put it in the comments because I would love to learn from you. All right, I'm gonna leave you here for now. And I'm wishing you well until next time. Namaste.